This is food. This is beans. So, Adrian Pinter, the Batman, Matt Reeves, or as you call him continuously, Bat Reeves, the Batman. What did you think of this movie?
Ooh, Simon, let me tell you, this movie was great. We did a fairly solid, I would say, review on our main show, Split Focus Film and TV podcast, where we kind of dived into like a spoiler-free, broad review of the whole thing. And both you and I...
Episode 88. Episode 88.
Ooh,
check it out.
Great episode. Fantastic episode, I would say. Arguably our best. And, we talked about it on more broad terms. So in this conversation, we're not really going to break down an exact review. We're going to talk more so about specific spoilers that kind of jumped out to us. But all in all, man, I freaking love this movie. I thought it was awesome. And it does some very unique and interesting things that I don't think any other Batman movie has done. And it's this awesome detective, murder mystery story that, again, I could recommend to literally anyone, superhero fan or not. But yeah, man, what did you think exactly?
Exactly kind of what you said, with maybe some added flourishes. Greg Fraser's cinematography is unbelievable. The hair and makeup, the production design, Michael Giacchino's score. We didn't mention this actually on episode 88, but the use of the Nirvana song continuously throughout the movie, which I appreciate, especially because Matt Reeves was listening to said song while he was literally making the script, writing the screenplay for the movie. I just really appreciate that concept, with the fact that, of course, that Matt Reeves was saying that he thinks that Robert Pattinson's basically Kurt Cobain in some capacity. Like, he kind of was inspired by the concept of Kurt Cobain being this absolute legendary rock star, but also being a bit of a recluse that people didn't know a lot about. And so Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is sort of inhabiting those kind of features from Kurt Cobain, with the added flourish of having, of course, Something in the Way from Nirvana playing in multiple scenes in the movie. And so I don't know. It's just so good. There's just so many good elements. Gotham City being a very distinct character, the acting from Paul Dano and Colin Farrell and Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, it's just so good. Again, I said it most of it on 88, like episode 88. But now to get into some spoiler fare here, Adrian, I just want to say, this is a spoiler cast. We are literally going to spoil the movie right now, like in the next 30 seconds. So if you've not watched The Batman and you intend to, and you don't want to have this spoiled by two goofs on a podcast, then do not listen any further and leave now and perhaps listen to our review on episode 88. And then go watch the movie because it's awesome and you don't know what you're missing out on.
Sure.
So, Adrian, I just want to get right into the heart of it. I'm just going to roll right to the end, just before the credits. Huh? Barry Keegan as the Joker.
Yeah. So,
crazy, eh? Crazy.
Yeah, that's wild. Now, unfortunately, this was actually leaked a while ago by Barry Keegan himself.
It was. By Barry Keegan's brother, Eric Keegan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Barry Keegan would have done that. I think Eric Keegan, I wonder if he got fined or something. That's really stupid. Like, why would you do that? That's what I was thinking. I was reading up on that. I was like, why did you do that? Yeah. There was like a really terrible like piece of concept art that went around, like not really concept art, but somebody just like mocked up Barry Keegan's face as the Joker. And that floated around. I think I'd seen that, but I completely forgot that existed because I thought that was a joke because it was just so badly done. So I think that I didn't remember that. Did you remember that going in?
That he was Joker?
Yeah.
I didn't. As soon as the ending happened and I like heard his voice, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that being like a reveal. So like,
oh, okay, cool.
I remembered it as soon as that scene started, I would say. But yeah, going through the movie, I totally forgot about it.
I didn't remember at all, actually, until literally I looked up once I saw the credits roll, and it said unnamed, whatever, Arkham prisoner as his name, Barry Keegan in the credits. I was like, oh, I didn't really realize.
Yeah.
I completely just didn't realize. And it's funny because I don't know if you heard the people behind us.
I did. I was just about to say.
It's so ridiculous. They kept repeating, like, this one guy's like, oh man, you got to watch Gotham now. You got to watch Gotham because this is clearly Cameron Monaghan from Gotham.
Yeah.
It's clearly him. It's like, no, it isn't. First of all, it doesn't sound anything like him.
I know.
And it doesn't look like him when they showed him in the shadows. And it's like, why do you keep saying this? And then it literally rolled the credits and they kept saying it. He kept talking about it after, and it's like, just pay attention. Those guys were annoying right from the beginning, though, quite frankly, because we were listening to the credits. Sorry, not the credits, but like the trailers in the beginning before the movie started. Yeah. And they were just talking all the way through them, like really loudly. Like they were talking louder because the credits were like...
The trailers, yeah.
I keep saying credits, but the trailers kept playing louder because the movie's about to start. But I'm like, they better not do this during the movie. And I want to point out something, Adrian, because I said this the last time we went to go see like a big movie like this. And we watched an 8 o'clock regular showing. We did not go to Ultra AVX to watch this movie. And guess where the rowdy people were again?
In our friggin' theater, Simon.
Because we saw another movie, as we talked about on our podcast, we saw it Uncharted, and that the people were very well behaved. Mm-hmm. I don't recall anyone doing that in Uncharted when we went to see it in Ultra AVX, like the few nights before. Just for clarity, I'm talking about the ridiculous concept that I introduced many weeks back, in which I stated that if moviegoers are willing to spend the money on Ultra AVX or IMAX tickets, so they're generally a little bit more respectful of the movie-going experience, and they're a little bit less rowdy and talk less during the movie, or not Susie C kickers, if you will. That's kind of what my theory was. We saw the Batman in a regular movie theater, and the individuals behind us were the most rowdy in a theater that I've seen in a while. So that's kind of the theory, the working theory that I'm talking about here. Yeah, I don't know. Again, is this the theory? It's anecdotal. No, there's no, like, I don't have any like empirical evidence or some shit, but I just find that those guys behind us were like kind of ridiculous. But they weren't throughout the movie, so I appreciate that. They weren't saying anything stupid throughout the movie, so I can appreciate that.
It's funny because like as soon as the movie finished as well, they're just like, oh yeah, this isn't as good as the Dark Knight movies. Like even Dark Knight Rises is better. Like they just immediately said that. I'm like, yeah. Do you guys not find any enjoyment in anything? It's just like, why?
It's like so quick.
Yeah, I was like, why do you have to compare it? Just like the fucking thing for what it is. Again, I know they're both Batman movies, but it's like they're different in their own right. It's just
also let it settle for a second.
Yeah, exactly.
It just ended. Yeah, like geez Louise.
Yeah, it's just like as soon as the screen went black, like this is worse than the Dark Knight trilogy. I'm like, oh my god.
Because I didn't realize that, I didn't know who it was. I didn't realize it was Barry Keegan until I saw the credits roll. I didn't know that it wasn't Cameron Monaghan. I'm like, could it be Cameron Monaghan? And I'm like, that's not a good idea. The Gotham show is genuinely not good.
Yeah.
And like, it's not, okay, I shouldn't say that. It's not amazing. Like, it has so many flaws. It's, it's serviceable for sure. It's flawed beyond belief. And one thing that movie, actually that show did well, the show on Fox, created by Bruno Heller, man, a flawed show. But that show did well is actually kind of show Gotham as a character in a pretty good way for a network show. Actually, it didn't do a bad job with that. I actually felt some of the Gotham vibes for the city, not as high production value, clearly, and not as nearly as good like the actual cinematography for sure. But I could feel it a little bit, which I kind of appreciated. But yeah, I was not really thinking that it was Cameron Monaghan, but I thought maybe they had found that out as a leak, and I'm like, is it Cameron Monaghan? Because that would be very weird. Yeah. But is Gotham worth seeing? No, no, it is not. If you were going to like watch one show or another, I would say don't watch that show. Like watch the Gotham PD show that's about to come out theoretically, which I'd like to ask you about. Maybe I should have brought that up on the regular podcast. But what do you think about that? Like going forward, the Matt Reeves-verse, like what's going to happen with this? Like. I feel like you're going a little overboard, in my opinion, just before I throw it to you. I just wonder about Penguin show being a thing and the Gotham PD. Like, slow it down is my kind of first instinct. I don't know if you need this many shows right away. Maybe lead into the Penguin like way later. Maybe they're just announcing it, but it will be way later. I don't know. What's your feeling? I'm excited for it, but I'm very curious. Like, the Batman was such an important part too for these mysteries. Is he just going to be in the Gotham PD show with Jeffrey Wright? Like,
I would like that to be the case. I don't know. It's interesting. I think, like, I'm definitely excited for it as well. I think this is going to be sweet, like having these additional shows. But I tend to agree with you. Is like, do we need them to right away? And I think kind of the answer to that is like, how long is going to be the in between the Batman and the sequel. Like, how many years have passed in that universe? And if we're, watching this Gotham PD show to, flesh out those few years to see, how Gotham is changing, or even the Penguin show, because I assume it's going to be about him taking over, like as the crime boss after Falcone gets killed. Like it kind of depends on that, because I don't want it to be like, oh yeah, the Penguin show is happening at the exact same time as the Batman movie is out, and it's just kind of like a side sort of story. I want it to, at the very least, set up, what the universe might be once we get to this sequel movie, if that makes sense. Have Penguin as an established like crime boss by the time we get to, the second movie. And, maybe we're seeing in the Gotham PD show, Gordon becoming the commissioner, and that's kind of what that show's about. So once we get to Batman 2, it's like, okay, cool. Penguin's the crime boss, Gordon's the commissioner now, and let's proceed from here, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's good. I'm curious, like, I can't remember now, what year was the Gotham PD show supposed to take place in? Because for some reason I have this thought that it was supposed to be year 1 for Batman.
Oh, you might be right, actually.
I can't remember, but I'm looking it up like literally while you're talking here, because when you said it's going to be segueing to the next movie, although you were saying the Penguin will be, which I imagine might be. So actually, if they take place in different timelines, then it doesn't matter, and that actually could be the distinct difference, because that was my confusion. Like, why would you do two? Like, it's still Gotham, and Penguin's obviously going to be a big part of the influence of of Gotham PD. Obviously, they're going to be dealing with Penguin constantly, so why have him in both? But maybe it's because it's before Batman slightly, not doing the Gotham move like Fox's Gotham, where you literally go back before he puts the cape and cowl on. And the line that Bruno Heller used in his press tour for when that show was about to come out was, by the time the show ends, Batman will just be putting his cape and cowl on, which is just a dumb concept in theory, but whatever. Stupid. But it'd be cool if the Gotham PD show, maybe Penguin's only a limited series, and the Gotham PD show could actually continue past year 1. And maybe it'll be year 3 or something after the second movie. It'd be kind of a cool thing if they can start I wouldn't say interlapping, but that's definitely not a word. Overlapping together. It would be cool. But I'm excited for this whole universe, because if they could do kind of the quality that Peacemaker is.
I agree, yeah.
In that it's so good. And you obviously watched Giri Haji, which is like Joe Barton's series, which Joe Barton is now the showrunner, and Matt Reeves is helping Joe Barton, but ultimately Joe Barton's kind of, I feel like the head of that Gotham PD series. I feel like he can do a really good job, because Giri Haji is just so well reviewed and regarded. And I think the Giri Haji's not on a network that's got as much clout or money as HBO has. Oh, do you remember what Giri Haji was like? What network it's on?
I don't know. It was technically like a Netflix original for like distribution, but I'm not too sure. Let me find out for you.
Yeah, not all the Netflix series have as much money. Like, I feel like every single, pretty much Apple TV Plus and HBO series have like amazing budgets. Like, they just don't seem to have, it almost seems like they don't have a ceiling. Yeah. Almost in some capacity.
So Giri Haji was on BBC Two.
Yeah, so that they don't always have the best budgets. Although BBC creates some great content, like a lot of the time, it's surprising how good some of their content is. But that's cool. So yeah, I'm excited for that. I was curious what you thought. But to move back into this, so Barry Keegan's blowing up. Hey man, he's just he's killing it. I don't know how I feel about Barry Keegan as Joker, but honestly, I don't want to judge it, because everyone prejudged Heath Ledger, and it was just stupid. And actually, people were just judging Robert Pattinson like that was really dumb too. Although we had a pretty good perspective that whatever Robert Pattinson's going to do is going to be really good, just based on our like us watching him in The Lighthouse and our favorite movies, Twilight.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I'm fairly confident with Barry Keegan, because I quite like him as an actor. I haven't seen him in much. I watched him in, obviously The Eternals last year, and I really like his acting in that movie and his character in that movie. But the first time I think I saw him was when I watched The Killing of a Sacred Deer a while ago.
Yeah.
And he's freaking amazing in that. And he plays a very unsettling character in that movie. Just kind of
that might have been where honestly Matt Reeves has seen him. That would be my guess. Because if you think about it too, like the reason why Matt Reeves also wanted Robert Pattinson is because he saw again a little bit more. I was gonna say discreet, but like obscure movie he saw was Good Time.
Good Time, yeah.
And which is kind of Killing of a Secret Deer, like what's the director's name? Yorgos. I don't know. I'm butchering it.
He did like
He did The Lobster as well with Colin Farrell, which also explains a little bit of the connection of Colin Farrell being in this too. Mm-hmm. So I do think that there's a connection with that. Yorgos
Lanthimos.
Yorgos Lanthimos. I butchered his name badly. I think I said Yorgos. That's like terrible. Anyways, I shouldn't have just started guessing. Regardless, yeah. And you talked about that at the time. I don't think we talked about this on a podcast. We talked about how much you love that movie and how creepy it is.
Yeah, it's incredibly unsettling.
I remember you talking about how much. I always intended to watch this like Lanthimos's like filmography because I know it's very unique. Like I always intended to watch The Lobster as an example.
Mm-hmm. And then he did The Farewell, which I think was an Oscar-nominated Best Picture movie too. Oh, was it The Farewell? No, I'm mixing that up.
No, not The Farewell. Sorry, you're talking about the movie with Awkwafina? No, he didn't do The Farewell.
The Favorite, sorry. The Favorite.
Oh, yeah. The Favorite. Oh, wait, hold on. He did The Favorite?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that Oscar-nominated movie.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, with... what's her name? I'm losing all my names now, so I have no idea.
Olivia Colman and Emma Stone, I think.
Yeah, Olivia Colman, Emma Stone, and Rachel Weisz. But anyway, okay, we're going off track here. Point is, you think he'll be good then? You have a good hope for it, interestingly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then there's the question, so just getting off of that a little bit, is he going to be the next villain? And I have a feeling no, actually.
Yeah.
I think that they just pepper him in, that they slowly develop him into this villain over time through the second movie and then make him potentially the third villain. I don't know if you really want to end on the Joker, though. It would be nice if he was pulling some strings in the second film. But Matt Reeves specifically said that there was actually another scene prior to the scene that was shown in the movie. He cut it out intentionally because he felt like it didn't work in the confines of his movie. And it was supposed to be a scene in which it's almost like the movie The Silence of the Lambs. It was supposed to be Batman going into Arkham to talk to this Joker-like character, unnamed Arkham Asylum prisoner. He's supposed to go there and he's supposed to talk to him for a perspective on the Riddler so he could catch him. That was what the scene was. He had that scene. He shot it. It's already done. And there's more of a perspective of who he is because they shoot him in like this dark, shadowy environment, but he says a lot more and there's a lot more to the scene. It's interesting. And Matt Reeves was basically saying that the reason why he put the last scene in the movie in the end, because he almost cut that out as well, is because it actually informs the ending of the movie where Batman and Catwoman are talking on that like bridge area before they go separate ways, by the way, which was a great shot. And I predicted it was going to happen, but when they get on their motorcycles and they go the opposite directions from the tunnel, I thought that was brilliant. I was like, oh, I know what he's doing here. I know what Reeves is doing. As soon as they got on a motorcycle, I'm like, he's guaranteed making them go down a single road. And then they're going to go their separate ways, the opposite direction when they hit the T-shape, like the next road. But anyways, the thing that Batman and Catwoman are talking about on that area was she's basically saying, come with me. Like this place is never going to change. The reason why that's so informed as a scene, and he was explaining that works, is because of the fact that the previous scene was Riddler talking to this potential Joker. And the fact that they're talking about how they're just like teaming up and they're like, it's just a madhouse. And that's the kind of the concept of why he left the scene in there, because without that scene, it's like, okay, I guess things could go back to normal or whatever normal is in Gotham. And so that was his reasoning, which I think is kind of neat. But that was a long-winded question for you. It's a 5-hour question. Hopefully you didn't fall asleep there, Adrian. I was asking you, do you think that Joker will be the next villain?
I don't think so. I think, like you said, I think he'll be like kind of like sprinkled throughout this trilogy. And then maybe in that last one, it'll be like he's, the mastermind or whatever and be at the forefront. Who I would like to see as the next villain that I don't think I guess we have seen it in like, was it Batman Forever or some shit? With
Gotham?
Was he in Gotham?
Every villain's in Gotham. Gotham is basically about the rogue gallery. But I know it's funny. I'm predicting what you're going to say before you say it. Let's just probably give context.
It is Mr. Freeze. I would love that. Yeah. And I think you can do, at least in this universe, it seems very grounded and stuff. And I think you can do a lot of emotional storytelling with this and make him a very interesting and, sympathize with this villain. And I would love to see that be the next one, honestly, because I think they do a really good job with Mr. Freeze in the Arkham games, for one, as well as the Telltale Batman series.
Yeah, that's a kind of a weird looking villain, though. That's the problem with it, is he's not grounded. As all the villains are, probably Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze are probably the most not grounded, or maybe Man-Bat. I guess Man-Bat's pretty...
Killer Croc.
Killer Croc is pretty nuts, too. But there's like a lot more grounded, a lot of other grounded, more grounded villains. I think that's also why they jump to the Joker a lot, too.
Yeah.
I was reading certain websites and they were all kind of saying, why are you doing the Joker again? We've seen the Joker so many times. I don't want to see the Joker. And it's like, I kind of do still want to see the Joker.
Yeah, me too.
I know that this is something that is theoretically overdone, but it's not really, because the Joker has taken many forms. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. It's neat.
Yeah, again, I think one of the highlights of the Telltale Batman series as well is what they do with the Joker. The character of John Doe in that series. And I love like that creative sort of aspect, almost like a team up between these two characters in that game. And again, I'm curious what you can do with that in this movie. Like I would love, the one thing I love about this movie as well is like throughout it, the Riddler is, talking to Batman, and you realize that he thinks that he's actually working with Batman, that they are a team. And then when the reveal happens, Batman actually talks to the Riddler and he's like, no, man, you're fucking insane. Like, I'm not working with you. And, Paul Dano does such an amazing job in that scene where he's just like, no. Like, this isn't the way it should have happened, blah, 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 blah. Like, I thought that was super impactful.
Yeah, that could have gone awry. That could have been come off as cheesy, but because it's Paul Dano, though, it's just the way he did that. You could feel that he wasn't faking it. And that's the beauty of it. Well, obviously he's faking it. He's an actor, but I mean, like, it felt real. And you're right. That was impactful, but I feel like that could have easily been not impactful. Mm-hmm. It could have easily been very hokey because this camera pretty much is trained on him. It barely moves. So that's a really good call out. But that's just, an awesome scene.
Yeah, like, I don't know. I'm really in love with this universe and kind of what they set up.
I should point out, just before we get too far off track from what you were just talking about, the John Doe in the Telltale games, of course, I think we mentioned this on episode 88, but the Telltale game series is it's a video game series, but it's more narrative focused. And you make choices for Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. The Telltale game where Batman teams up with John Doe and they kind of seem like they're friends. If you think about what I just talked about just moments ago, Matt Reeves wanted him to literally go to Arkham Asylum and work with him.
Yeah.
To try and take down the Riddler. So he I wonder if Matt Reeves has played the Telltale game.
I imagine he did.
I'm curious if he's got that perspective, just because that's an interesting concept, because he's starting in the same place that John Doe does in the Telltale game too. And that John Doe is not like on the street to start. He's in the asylum, which is an interesting spot to start the Joker, which is not where Nolan started him. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a cool idea, because in Nolan's The Dark Knight, it's basically Heath Ledger's Joker's just on the street. We don't know where he came from. It's a mystery.
Hey, he just shows up.
Yeah, it's kind of really neat. I'm very curious.
Yeah, I'm sold on this universe, and I'm excited to see where it goes. And again, I love the grounded nature. I love that detective aspect, which we talked about. Just how they figure out all these clues, and how Batman is like, 2 steps ahead of all of these like police officers and all of these detectives. Even Gordon, when he's just like. When they figure out like the cipher and it says drive, and then they go into like the garage and he's just like, okay, finds like, he's just like, oh, drive. Like, is there a USB port in the car? And they open like the, center console. There's a USB stuck in it with a thumb attached. And he's like, thumb drive. I'm like, fuck, man, that's brilliant. It's just like these little things that is set up. And I'm like,
the most common line Jeffrey Wright's Gordon says consistently is Jesus.
Yeah.
He says it so often. I think it's kind of interesting. That's I feel like if you counted how many times he says the word Jesus, it's the most that he said of any other word.
Yeah, I really love this rendition of Gordon as well. And again, the relationship between him and Batman is just fucking awesome, dude. And again, Gordon even just like, I just love how he says like, man, all the time. Like he like finishes, like he's like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah,
Just things like that. It's just these little things where it's just,
I know.
he seems like so grounded in reality. And it's like, I guess like you kind of would be reacting like that. It's like, what are you doing, man? You know,
There's this moment at like near the 3/4 mark where he specifically says to Batman, he's like, I don't trust anyone but you. And I was like, oh man, that somehow hit me a little bit. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's kind of beautiful. Like they're almost friends in this like really cool way. And I just really appreciated that quite a bit.
yeah. It's like, yeah, it's like, it's just like, I don't even know who you are, man. Like even that line.
But then again, after he finds out more and more about the case and realizes that the only one who's straight shooting, like for the most part, is the Batman, it's kind of neat. But he does initially, in the beginning, he's like, I don't even know who you are, man.
Yeah.
You don't even give me your name. Yeah, it's cool. It's just it's really, really good. And there's another part that I want to point out that just really stuck with me, and I don't know why it came up in my mind this morning at some point. I was just like, oh man, what a crazy scene that was. And it's the scene in which you just talked about it. Batman goes to see the Riddler and he starts freaking out. But before he starts freaking out, he's talking to the Batman, and the scene is just so well written and so well performed, but he keeps saying Bruce Wayne as if he's telling him that he's Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And he knows he's going into this trap where he thinks that he's going to be revealed as being like Bruce Wayne being the Batman who's going to blow his cover. And he thinks that's what's going to happen, like Bruce Wayne does. And he goes there anyways on the request of the Riddler to go visit him in jail. And he's standing there and he doesn't say anything. And then his shoulders suddenly perk up when Riddler uses the word he as opposed to you. To describe the Batman and Bruce Wayne. And I just think that is kind of awesome. I don't know, there's something about that scene and the way it was shot so slowly and deliberately and the way the time was taken to make it. It's just so good. This is like a very high level. I really do appreciate this because this is a 3-hour movie out of the gate for the start of this trilogy. Like I almost don't understand. I almost wish they could go further than 3. Maybe make it 4 movies because I don't know how you can potentially incorporate the Joker and really tell a compelling tale if you're going to maybe make the Joker the main villain, like he kind of is in a lot of Batman stories. But maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just do something else. But I just that scene and that dynamic, as you pointed out, of him almost being an accomplice to the Riddler. And him just getting pissed off that he thinks that's the case after he realizes that he doesn't know, thank God, that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I just, man, so good.
Super good. But yeah, I mean, you talked on episode 88 as well. Like, you know, Batman is kind of, he's new to like this whole Batman thing. You know, he's only 2 years in and, you know, makes these like off decisions or odd decisions. But yeah, like honestly, there's like the one, like, near the end of the movie, he literally gets blasted in the chest with a fucking shotgun.
Oh, yeah. The number of times he's shot, man, it's crazy.
I agree.
It's crazy, and he just keeps taking it. And that's why I'm hoping, I said this on 88, but I'm hoping that he starts to get better and more mature and like he's less likely to get hit because it's just too much. Like he gets hit so many times and he goes down way too many times. If he didn't have the allies he had, he would not have survived.
Yeah, I agree. And again, like he said, it makes sense though, because you know he even says like, I don't care if I die. Like this isn't about me. He's just trying to fix Gotham, and if he dies in the process, whatever, who cares? And again, he's like this reckless Batman, and I like, you know, at the end of the movie when he's essentially like, oh, this like city doesn't need justice, like, or vengeance, it needs hope. So I think we are going to get a more, you know, intelligent Batman, not as reckless, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Matt Reeves described it, I think, as that before the movie, like I think a week before or something. So somebody did. They were saying that he's probably one of the more reckless, like crazy Batmen that we've seen so far, and that he's a little bit unhinged, as Alfred seems to point out a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super interesting. Now, I have a question for you. So that scene where he gets shot with the shotgun and he's like lying down.
Yeah.
He like has this green tube that he injects himself with.
Yeah, adrenaline.
Was my immediate thought, I was like, yeah, maybe that's adrenaline. But do you think that might be Bane's venom?
No.
You don't think so? Because Bane, like usually in the comics and stuff, it's always like this green liquid that he injects himself with to get like, super strong, and like it's essentially adrenaline, but like makes him a little crazy. And, he injects himself with it, gets up, and then just like nearly kills the guy because he's just so riled up. That was my first thought, personally.
Well, you would do that if you had adrenaline kick.
Yeah.
I think that would be what would have happened anyways, because he was already kind of riled up, but he just couldn't move.
Yeah.
I think he just, when he like ejected himself, I think they just made it green like for effect. Like it's probably his own cocktail that he created so that like it, I don't know. He wants it to be safe to use in field probably. I don't think it's the Venom, because it's like, that's a whole other level. Mm-hmm. But do you think that, or are you just playing devil's advocate? I'm curious.
No, that was like my initial thought. The only thing that would kind of like hold me back from, like it's Bane's Venom, is like, do you really want to step on that again, like and go like that Nolan route? Because we're already touching on, the Joker, possibly Catwoman, and then if you bring in Bane, that's like two of the three main I guess four main antagonists of like the Nolan trilogy, and then obviously Catwoman as well as in Dark Knight Rises.
Those are kind of important villains though. Like Catwoman's super important, I feel like. So that was a good one to throw in right away. I appreciate the start, how he's starting this, Matt Reeves, is because of the fact that he's pulling in a lot of these villains right away. The issue I think that Nolan had in the end of his trilogy is that he didn't set up enough villains that, like, Bane couldn't let really anybody out of Arkham. He can only let out Scarecrow because he's the only one really around. That was also obviously because of Heath Ledger. But
yeah, passing away, unfortunate.
Yeah, I think that was kind of an unfortunate situation, that he couldn't play off the rogues gallery as much as he could have. Like, he never did the Penguin, he never did Riddler at all. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of a disappointing thing, because I feel like Penguin's an easier one to do in that kind of grounded Nolan like Batman verse. So it's even the Riddler can be, if you do it appropriately, like this Paul Dano Riddler was pretty grounded for sure. But that's kind of an issue, is like, again, Bane goes to let out people out of like Blackgate and Arkham, and then there's like one guy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, cool.
Literally just one dude.
I guess it's fine. It's just kind of disappointing. Like, they brought back, I guess, Ra's al Ghul, but it's like he's not really in it because he's kind of gone. So yeah, that's the thing for me. I don't know. It's an interesting one. But like, I wonder about that whole thing, because Bane in like I really like the Nightfall comic line, and where Bane lets out like everyone out of Arkham, and it just causes so much shit, and Batman's like torn to pieces. I was gonna say torn asunder, and then I said pieces. Seems stupid, but anyway, he was torn in pieces. Like, he was just like torn in multiple directions to just try and put everyone and rile them all back up. And then by the end of it, he goes to fight Bane, and his back gets like snapped. He just like snaps him over his knee, kind of like he did in this, in Dark Knight Rises, I should say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I almost kind of want to see that, but I know that would literally be closest to too close to the Nolan trilogy. So it's probably not a good idea to go that direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you.
But yeah,
there's one scene in particular when Batman is going through like the nightclub the first time. I love how he just like walks up to the front door of the nightclub, and he's like, "I'm here to see Penguin." And and they're like, dude, you're not getting in here. And he just walks through and starts beating the shit out of everyone. But there's like, I pointed this out to Ken when we were sitting in the movie theater. There's this one scene where he's like walking down the stairs, and it looks identical to the same like staircase that Bane and Batman fight in The Dark Knight Rises, where like Bane actually breaks his back. I was like, oh man, this looks exactly like that thing. And Ken was like, oh yeah, it kind of does. So I don't know if that was like a direct little like reference or a nod to that movie, but that's one thing I picked up on there. One other thing I want to mention that I really loved about this movie, just real quick, is the scene when Batman, punches Gordon in the police station. They're having that conversation. Gordon's like, all right, you're going to have to punch me in the face. Here's the key. Like, get out of here. Again, I love the relationship they have in this movie. And he like runs up, punches Gordon, runs out of the police station, and he's at the top, and the police are like chasing after him. And he puts on this like wingsuit of sorts. It's like this like little wingsuit, which I really, really liked. And you can tell that he's like, he's still Batman, but he's nervous. He's like, oh, I don't think I've used this before. And like jumps down and like flies, and then like unloads his like parachute, like just before it falls, and then he gets like hooked on like a bridge, and he just eats shit. Like, just
Yeah, when he
totally.
pulled, honestly, when he pulled the parachute there, I'm like, that's the worst place to pull that. But I guess it's like it's like a split second decision. Like you're going through already a tunnel, and it's like you're probably not going to make it. The tunnel was in a bad spot for him.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that's the crazy thing is that Nolan's Christian Bale Batman was never that inexperienced. He seemed to make good choices like throughout. Like in terms of tactical choices, very often he made pretty good strategic moves. Not necessarily against Bane, but that's just because he was an older Batman at that point. Mm-hmm. But in Dark Knight and Batman Begins, he was kind of a little bit smarter in some aspects. He made some mistakes, but not like that. And he rolls, like he hits the ground and he just keeps rolling, and it's like, man, how is he going to get up from that? It's a tough one. But
and I just love how he does get up, but he's like essentially just like limping away, and it's like, oh man, he just ate shit there.
Yeah, it's great. Again, it's cool how human he is. That's what I loved about Batman from the beginning. That's what my favorite thing about Batman is the fact that it's just this human man who has no superpowers, who literally is just pushed based on force of will. Mm-hmm. And that's my favorite thing. It's so cool that he's able to do that. Sure, he's got billions of dollars, but that doesn't matter when you're in a gunfight. It just doesn't make a difference at that point because you're not using guns. You refuse to kill people for obvious reasons. And that was another theme that they made sure to touch on in this movie as well. They didn't forget about that. That would have been kind of disappointing if they went like the Zack Snyder route of I didn't intentionally kill anybody type situation. But they didn't do that here. They clearly made that a theme as well with Zoe Kravitz's Batwoman, and I appreciate that too.
Catwoman, yeah.
What did I say?
Batwoman.
A Batwoman? That was so dumb.
You silly goose.
That was a dumb thing to say. Anyway, Catwoman. Yeah, anyway. And then John Turturro is so good as Falcone. Mm-hmm. And that whole mystery and the way they did the riddles with like the Ostrada Alata or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
With I think I said it wrong, whatever. But regardless, that was such a neat idea of them trying to figure this out the whole time. And it's really good. The one thing I want to touch on just before we wrap this guy up, this Closer Look episode for sure. And I know we'll think of a million other things as soon as we wrap this up as well. But
definitely,
there is also the concept of like the city being flooded. Oh, and this is a thing that I kind of wonder about. And I turned to my brother at the end of the movie and I'm like, how do they recover from that? Like, how do you be like, is it Waterworld now? Like, I don't understand. How do you fix this? Can you unflood a city when you break the storm walls, like the seawall? Like, can you?
I don't know. What did they do in New Orleans?
Did New Orleans completely get flooded?
I think so. I don't know. I wasn't there during the hurricane, Katrina or whatever.
Oh, or hurricane. Yeah, it's true. I wonder if it just kind of, it's a good point. When cities get flooded like that, I wonder how, maybe it just happens over time. Mm-hmm. Was it unflooded by the end of the movie when Batwoman, I said Batwoman again, am I insane? When Catwoman and when Selena Kyle, let's just go there, Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne, they're going their separate ways. Was it flooded still and this was higher ground in Gotham City? Is that what this was?
Yeah, I think it was just higher ground in Gotham City because I think there's still a shot of Gotham being like the majority of it being flooded at the end of the movie, if I recall correctly. Maybe I'm misremembering it, but
I don't know if that was at the end. I think that was after. I think that Catwoman, the Selena Kyle Batman scene was after.
Yeah, you might be right. I don't know.
Because it was one of the last scenes of this entire movie. And again, it was so slow. I really appreciate like how slow he shot that. Like, it's just like he let them drive all the way down the road. By the way, I think there's almost a mirror scene or something very similar as well in the Telltale game series.
Yeah.
I just realized that.
Yeah, there is. Because
Catwoman and Batman are working together in that too. And they've got the same kind of interesting antagonistic and not antagonistic relationship where there's the sexual chemistry and all that. It's just so good. That Telltale's game series is quite good. Like I really appreciate the plot in that. But I feel like he must have played that because there are certain elements that are just not that I'm saying he copied it at all. I just feel like he took some kind of like some of the magic of that, and obviously some of the magic from many other things to make this movie. But
yeah, no, definitely. And again, like even the Arkham games, like the scenes where he's just like punching people off like the ledges, but every time they're falling, they're not falling to their death. Like they're just hung up on a little rope and stuff like that. I really love that too. Like when he's on the bleachers at the end of the movie, he's just fucking those people up. just like punching them off like ledges, but all of them just are hanging there, like by like something attached to their foot to those not bleachers, I guess, like those rafters or whatever. Again, I think Matt Reeves definitely took inspiration from both those games, but definitely Telltale Batman, which I really like.
Sorry, what was the connection with the being attached to rope and Telltale? I don't remember that.
No, not in Telltale, in the Arkham games.
Oh, I thought that was closer to like the Dark Knight, because there's that scene in the building in which Batman swoops in and then he attaches them with ropes and like pulls them through the floor.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, I guess that's a common thing. It is fucking cool.
That's a badass scene. That was such a good, man. The Dark Knight is a masterpiece. Just to say, like, I know we talk really highly about this movie. I don't know if I would pick one or the other. Like, I really like this movie, but the Dark Knight is genuinely a masterpiece. It's like a masterfully built movie. From the first shot of that glass being blown out of the building, and then showing like the Joker standing there in the middle of the street waiting for the light to change. There's just again a lot of magic in that film, but there's a lot of magic in this movie, and
I agree.
Yeah, I'm so interested to see what Matt Reeves does next.
Me too.
Genuinely,
I'm very excited. Me too, man. Real quick, just before we wrap up, there's one thing that I actually didn't like about the movie. It's just one really small thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't like how they changed Edward Nygma's name to Edward Nelson.
Nashton.
Like when they did that, I was like, oh man, that kind of sucks. It's annoying. I don't know why you had to change that. It's just like, just keep it Nygma. Again, it's a little nitpick, but that was the one thing that when it happened, I was like, I don't like that. But other than that,
I wonder what was the reasoning.
I don't know. Maybe because like Nashton actually seems like a last name, whereas Nygma doesn't really seem like a normal last name, and we're in a grounded universe. But I don't know.
I'm looking just briefly. I just typed it in. Screen Rant said something like, "Why Matt Reeves' movie uses Riddler's original name?"
Oh,
it says original name. And their answer quickly here, and I'm not going into the full article, but they're saying it's meant to make him more humanizing. Like, it's a take on the Dark Knight that makes it as grounded as possible.
Fair enough.
That was what they're looking. Because Edward like Enigma is like a little ridiculous.
It's a little on the nose, but
I know
it's something that I like.
It's literally on the nose. I can appreciate that. I don't know if that's the original name. I'd have to look into it a little bit more. But I'm sure Kenneth is like yelling at his phone right now. Yeah. He's like, it's his original name. Or it's like, no, it's not. I don't know. I don't know what he's thinking. I don't know what you're thinking, Kenneth. I don't know.
Ken, what are you thinking? Message me right now so I can say it on the podcast.
For those who don't know, Kenneth Stadelbauer is a individual who writes into our podcast on a weekly basis, and we appreciate him very much. Okay, Adrian, anything else you want to mention?
I love this movie.
Okay. Yeah, me too. I love it too, and I think we should see it again. Probably, it's a good idea. And I'm sure right after we've done this again, there'll be something we did not mention that we should have. But again, can't stress enough that the cinematography, just again, the flare shot is just it's ingrained in my brain. That flare shot, and that flare shot, by the way, just to completely not close this podcast. The flare shot is like, it's exactly that kind of idea of him becoming a beacon of hope, of him reaching down and pulling those people out of the rubble. Instead of just terrifying people and earning his respect in that regard to make criminals afraid of him, he decided to change his tactic, which again will leach into the rest of the films. Also, what am I insane? I didn't mention this on the regular podcast. He narrates this movie.
Oh yeah, fuck, dude! I totally forgot about that. Yeah,
that's so stupid. And actually, it's funny. There's some articles online are mentioning that like this movie is kind of almost funny. Funnily enough, it's kind of similar to the Joker movie in its style, and people kind of thought, "Oh, it's kind of a missed opportunity. Why not have Joaquin Phoenix in this as the Joker?" But I don't really care about that part. But my idea is here that movie, the Joker, was kind of similar to Taxi Driver, and honestly, this movie's kind of similar to Taxi Driver in some aspects because he's narrating. Because he's this kind of unhinged guy. No, not as unhinged as the Taxi Driver character. That guy's whoa. Way crazier in a lot of ways, but there's this idea of this kind of unhinged person like narrating his life in this very deliberate and slow way, and I appreciate that use of the narration. It's kind of a neat take because I don't think we've ever seen that before in a live action Batman film. I mean, So he narrates at the beginning of the movie and at the end, and I really liked it. I thought it was cool. But
I agree completely. I totally forgot about that. That's something I wanted to mention because I really like that too. It's unique.
Yeah, it's a neat design choice. Like, it's a neat design choice. It kind of was jarring for me in the beginning. I was like, I don't know if I like this, but I think by the end of it, I think I do enjoy it. And the concept, again, of him saying at the end, I'm, I realized my mistake. Like, I'm not just vengeance. Like, I can't just be known as some symbol of vengeance. It's not what I must be. I must be a symbol of hope, as you alluded to earlier. So yeah. Okay. Now I'm really wrapping this podcast up. Thank you, Adrian, for joining me. I appreciate you talking to me about the Batman. I mean, I could talk about it all night. I feel like there's lots of other things I could bring up randomly, but I'm not going to, because we got to wrap this up at some point. And so, Adrian, I say to you, thank you. And thank you to the audience. Have a good night.
Take care.
Or day. Goodbye.
Bye.